everyone, Tim here, playing Half-Life 2 Episode 2. Today I wanted to talk about Half-Life Alyx, specifically the G-Man and the extent of his powers. Firstly, I have to preface, the game footage you're watching is mostly unrelated. If we had the resources to play Half-Life Alyx, trust me, we would have been recording that crap like crazy. Unfortunately, this isn't the case, so here we are in Episode 2. Secondly, and most importantly, this video is going to be very spoiler heavy for Half-Life Alyx. I spoiled everything for myself because I knew I wasn't going to play it anytime soon, but if you want to stay uninformed, here's your warning. Next, I want to give a bit of a plug. This here is a G-Man theory, of which there are many, but this one slightly coincides with an excellent theory by Max Derat? I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't have any connections to this guy or anything, but his theory is super solid, and it's the one that I personally subscribe to. There's a link in the description below. Go check it out if you'd like. Alright, so let's get into it. First, I'm going to talk about how I think time works in the Half-Life universe. Then I'll touch on the Vortigaunts and their abilities, and then finally we'll get to the good stuff. So, time, objectively, is predestined in the Half-Life universe. The future is locked in, and there's no real way to change it. Alternate timelines do not exist in the Half-Life universe. It's all one timeline that follows a set path. This isn't to say that time is completely an illusion or that the past, present, and future are happening simultaneously. They're not. The timeline is just predestined. The present progresses along this timeline just as we perceive it, but the future is set in stone. Evidence for all these bold statements comes from the Vortigaunts. They see the past, the present, and the future simultaneously, but to my knowledge never mention parallel timelines or universes. It has been confirmed through various dialogue that the Vortigaunts perceive their past, present, and future all at once. Much like the aliens from Arrival. Go see that movie, by the way, it's really good. They see the objective past, present, and future as it is. Keep in mind, though, that they only perceive events that they are physically present for. They're not omniscient, I don't think anyway, but they see all of time, including the true future. And of course, they're all linked together through their vortessence hive mind. So anything that one Vortigaunt experiences, they all experience. Aside from the Half-Life Alyx Vortigaunt who has a brain injury, whose brain is injured, they all perceive everything together through each other's eyes. Okay, so with that out of the way, we can get into the meat and potatoes of my theory here. G-Man. G-Man's perception of time is actually less powerful than the Vortigaunts. Again, I'm not going to get into what exactly he is or what his motivations are, but I want to explore the extent of his power. I believe that G-Man actually experiences time much more similarly to you or I than the Vortigaunts. He can see into the future, but he doesn't understand that the future is set in stone. He believes that the future has an infinite amount of possibilities. He can see all of these possible futures, including the objective real one, but he doesn't know which one will play out. He believes he has agency in choosing which future takes place, but in reality, he kinda doesn't, at least no more than anybody else does. My theory that he lacks understanding of the future stems from this heart-to-heart he has with you in Episode 2. In it, he urges Gordon to make sure Alyx makes it safely to White Forest. If he was omniscient, like many believe, he'd know that, canonically, Alyx makes it through the end of Episode 2 safe and sound.
Dr. Freeman, I realize this moment may not be the most convenient for a heart-to-heart, but I had to wait until your friends were otherwise occupied. There was a time they cared nothing for Miss Vance, when their only experience of humanity was a crowbar coming at them down a steel corridor. When I plucked her from Black Mesa, I acted in the face of objections that she was a mere child and of no practical use to anyone. I have learned to ignore such naysayers when quelling them was out of the question. Still, I am not one to squander my investments, and I remain confident she was worth far more than the initial appraisal. That's why I must now extract from you some small repayment owed for your own survival. See her safely to White Forest, Dr. Freeman. I wish I could do more than keep an eye on you, but I have agreed to abide by certain restrictions. Well, now, listen carefully, my dear. When you see your father, relay these words. Prepare for unforeseen consequences.
So what about Half-Life Alyx, you may ask? There's definitely time travel going on here, and because he's changing the timeline by time traveling, he does have the power to change the future from its prescribed track, you may say. Well, first, let me finish. It's rude to interrupt. Let's define exactly how he's time traveling. I think that the order that the games were released in is essentially GMan's personal timeline. He experiences events as we did in release order. So from GMan's perspective, first would come Half-Life, then Opposing Force, then Half-Life 2, then Episode 1 and Episode 2. And at the end of Episode 2, upon seeing that Gordon brought Alyx safely to the end and that events transpired as he predicted, he went back in time to the period of Half-Life Alyx 5 years prior and hired her, using what happened in the present to bring her on board. The thing is, his time traveling is not making a new universe or changing anything because his going back in time is part of the prescribed timeline. Think like the type of time travel used in Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban with the Time Turner, where they're running around Hogwarts and stuff that they did in the future. Like when they time traveled from the future back to the past, they affected things in the past, even though at that point in the past they didn't know that they were going to time travel later. It's that kind of thing. GMan going back in the past was already part of the timeline. The timeline is one solid, cohesive line, and GMan essentially just experiences it out of order. GMan does, however, rewrite history, or approximately 30 seconds of it, when he does the nudge, letting 19-year-old Alyx kill the advisor that kills her dad. Based on what he says in his end dialogue in Half-Life Alyx, this rings true. He can only nudge things in a certain direction. Side note, I like how G-Man's nudge is such a monumental event now in gaming history. It's kind of like Thanos' snap from Infinity War in like the Marvel movies, but anyway. To recap, G-Man's story goes like this. He engineers the invasion of the Zen creatures, and by extension the Combine, by causing the Black Mesa incident. Gordon Freeman and Adrian Shepard perform admirably, so G-Man hires them directly after. Probably around this time, he sees many possible futures involving Alyx Vance, so he ensures baby Alyx's safety through the incident. 20 years later, the Combine are well entrenched into ruling Earth, so G-Man pulls Gordon out of stasis to take down the Citadel. When this is done, G-Man attempts to place him right back under until the Vortigaunts step in. Finally, during the events of Episode 2, possible futures become more and more clear to G-Man, so he lets events play out, telling Gordon to safely escort Alyx to White Forest, where the inevitable happens. The advisor comes in, kills her dad. G-Man then decides to go back in time to land 5 years in the past, getting captured, either intentionally or unintentionally, to have Alyx come and rescue him. He's happy with her proven abilities of resilience and strength, so he, for reasons known only to himself, lets her glimpse the present, reverse her father's death 5 years before it happens, and leaves her, memory wiped, to follow through the rest of the timeline. Back in the present, Eli is alive, Alyx is whisked away by the G-Man, and who knows what will happen next. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment if you're confused, or if you have any arguments against what I've said. I'll gladly talk it out with you, and maybe even make a sequel to this video. We'll see.
I know if humans
So, have a good day, everybody. Talk to you all another day.
understand our urgent need.
What are we waiting for?